This was a device that we wouldn't see again for another 2,000 years until the 1800s.
When they found that ancient Greek computer thing, what is that called?
The Antikythera mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, something was built that should not have existed. Not in ancient Greece, not without electricity, not without modern computers. Yet it did. In 1901, divers pulled a corroded lump of bronze from a shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera. At first, it looked like junk. Then, the gears appeared. Dozens of them, perfectly cut, interlocked with impossible precision. Scientists soon realized they were staring at the world's first known computer. But there was a problem. Nearly half of the machine was missing. For over a century, that missing section haunted historians. What did it calculate? What knowledge was lost with it? And why did ancient engineers need something this advanced? Now, using high-resolution 3D scans, AI simulations, and newly decoded inscriptions, researchers believe they've finally reconstructed the lost half. And what it reveals doesn't just rewrite history. It changes what we thought the ancient world was capable of. So before we reveal what the missing half was really built to do, like subscribe and stay with us. What was found, and the half that's gone. When the Antikythera mechanism was pulled from a Roman shipwreck in 1901, it didn't look like history's greatest discovery. It looked like scrap, corroded bronze, broken stone. But inside those fragments was something no one expected. A precision machine built more than 2,000 years ago. X-ray scans later revealed at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, cut with a level of accuracy not seen again until the medieval clockmakers. This device could predict eclipses, track planetary cycles, and model the motion of the heavens with astonishing precision. It wasn't just a calculator, it was a mechanical cosmos. But here's the unsettling part. What we have is not the full machine. Recovered fragments suggest the surviving pieces represent less than half of the original mechanism. Entire gear assemblies are missing. Plates that once held inscriptions are gone. Some researchers believe a rear section, possibly tracking additional planets or something even more advanced, was lost forever to the sea. The known mechanism already rewrites history. The missing half could obliterate it. What the inscriptions tell us. What can we actually read on the parts that survived? Let's start with the backside, since it's in better shape. At the top, there's a spiral that winds around 5 times, tracking 235 lunar months. That's the 19-year Metonic cycle the Greeks used to keep their moon-based calendars in sync with the seasons. Next to it is a smaller dial counting out 76 years, called the Ecliptic cycle, which made the long-term tracking even more accurate. The bottom half has another spiral covering 223 lunar months, the Satyros cycle, which was used to predict eclipses. Tucked inside, that is an even smaller dial tracking the exoligmos, a 54-year period that's basically 3 Saros cycles strung together. This fixed the annoying 8-hour leftover that built up with each cycle, keeping eclipse predictions spot on. There's also a little dial marking off 4-year periods for the major Greek athletic games. None of this is speculation. It's all carved right into the bronze. Take a closer look at the Saros spiral, and you'll see just how practical this machine really was. Each spot that might have an eclipse has a tiny Greek notation. A letter tells you if it's a lunar or solar eclipse, sigma for Selene, the moon, or delta for Helios, the sun. There's a symbol that looks like an anchor. It's actually 2 Greek letters combined, meaning hour, followed by another letter showing the time. Phrases like "of the day" or "of the night" tell you whether you'd actually be able to see the eclipse from Greece. Below each notation is an index letter pointing you to a longer explanation. These descriptions include things like which direction the shadow would move, how much of the sun or moon would be covered, and even what colors you might see. Picture someone cranking the handle to a specific month, spotting the eclipse warning on the dial, and then reading all the details about type, timing, and what to expect. For something built in the 1st century BC, that's absolutely stunning. The inscriptions also give us cultural clues. Back in 2008, researchers studying the text on the back identified all the month names on the Metonic dial. They didn't match Athens' famous calendar. Instead, they belonged to the Corinthian family of calendars used in Western Greece, especially in places like Epirus and Corcyra. Experts now think the sequence fits best with the Epirote calendar, possibly from the colony of Ambracia. Calendars are like cultural signatures. By engraving those particular month names, the maker essentially stamped the device with its hometown identity. The front cover, engineering specs in bronze. The front of the mechanism is much less intact. The gears and plates that once stuck out from the main frame are gone, leaving only pieces of the cover plates. But those covers had inscriptions on them, and what survives is incredibly valuable. In 2016, researchers published a detailed analysis of what they call the front cover inscription. These aren't poetic mysteries. They're precise lists of planetary relationships for each of the 5 known planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The inscription spells out how many synodic cycles, basically how many times a planet goes through its phases relative to the Sun, equal whole numbers of years, and complete trips through the zodiac. Put simply, the cover gives us the exact numerical ratios that the missing gear mechanisms had to produce. When it says that after a certain number of years, a planet completes an exact number of synodic cycles and zodiac revolutions, that's not a suggestion. It's a hard requirement. Any attempt to rebuild the front has to hit those numbers. This is why reconstructing the missing half is so tricky. We can't just imagine any design we want. The surviving gears show us what techniques the builders had available. The inscriptions tell us which mathematical patterns had to be there. And the physical space in front of the frame puts strict limits on how many wheels and tubes could fit without running into each other. A successful reconstruction has to satisfy all 3 conditions at once: the mechanics, the math, and the space. And that's where the real engineering challenge begins, rebuilding the lost front and proving it could actually work. How we rebuilt the missing front. Reconstructing the missing front half of the Antikythera mechanism wasn't about making educated guesses. It was careful engineering work. Step by step, researchers took the concrete evidence we have: gear counts, tooth sizes, surviving inscriptions, and the actual bronze framework, and used it all as input to rebuild the half that's gone. But before tackling the gears, artificial intelligence helped scholars get better readings of the inscriptions. A model called Ithaca, developed by DeepMind, helps restore damaged Greek texts. On its own, it gets missing letters right about 62% of the time. But when historians use it as a tool, their accuracy jumps from around 25% to over 70%. This matters because the numbers carved on those cover plates are the exact targets the front mechanism has to achieve. Better, more reliable readings meant fewer design possibilities and less guesswork. Wright's groundbreaking work. The first person to really prove the front could be more than just theory was Michael T. Wright in the early 2000s. Wright, who was a curator at London's Science Museum at the time actually built working models by hand. He introduced epicyclic gearing, small gears mounted on arms that orbit around bigger gears to reproduce the irregular motion of planets. He also used something called a pin and slot device, a clever mechanism where a pin sliding through a slot makes the driven gear speed up and slow down smoothly. Ancient Greek astronomers expected this kind of variable motion because that's how planets actually look when you watch them in the sky. Wright even built a complete planetarium model before the cover inscriptions were fully decoded. Was his design perfect? No. But he proved, with actual working brass models, that the front could definitely display planetary motions using techniques available to ancient Greek craftsmen. His work moved the conversation from maybe possible to yes, we can absolutely do this. The 2021 breakthrough later teams built directly on that foundation. The major breakthrough came in 2021, when a University College London team revealed what they called their model of the cosmos. This wasn't just a nice illustration or computer graphics. It was a complete front-side design that had to follow strict rules. It had to fit within the actual physical space left in the surviving frame. It had to reproduce the exact numerical relationships carved in the inscriptions, and it had to allow shafts and tubes to pass through the center without crashing into each other. At the center of this design sits a small dome representing Earth and the mechanism for the Moon. Around that core, the planetary gear systems are arranged so their outputs feed into a bundle of thin nested tubes at the middle. The researchers called this bundle the Central Coaxial Output, or CCO, and it's the structural backbone of the whole system. It allows multiple displays to share the same central hub without interfering with each other. In this reconstruction, the front face is organized as concentric rings rather than a jumble of overlapping pointers. That might sound like just an aesthetic choice, but it's actually critical. Rings eliminate parallax problems, the difficulty of reading multiple hands stacked on top of each other, and they match what the surviving instruction text says about a cosmos arranged in rings. One of the cleverest design decisions was moving the starting drive gears for the true Sun and the three outer planets, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Earlier reconstructions put those starter gears behind the large circular plate, which the 2021 paper calls the CP. That approach always created a mess. To route things around it, you needed awkward brackets that took up space and seemed unlikely for ancient builders. The UCL team solved this by moving those gears to the front. That single change freed up space, eliminated the bracket issue, and gave each planetary mechanism a clean path to the central output. Right at the center sits a fixed gear, labeled 56 in the paper, and compact epicyclic assemblies mount on that fixed anchor. You only find a solution like that after weeks of virtual layouts that keep crashing into themselves until you spot one opening and suddenly everything clicks into place. Gear sharing and smart design. Part of what makes this layout so elegant is gear sharing. Instead of building each planet's mechanism from the ground up, the UCL team had several systems borrow key wheels. The true Sun shares a gear labeled 52 with Saturn and uses the same fixed gear, 56, that anchors all three outer planets. Mars and Jupiter share another gear labeled 64. This kind of efficiency is essential when your available space is measured in tenths of an inch. Every extra axle adds thickness, and every new wheel risks a collision. By sharing gears, the design stays thin and compact. The rebuild also had to respect the physical skeleton preserved in one large surviving piece. The main drive wheel, with 4 spokes and sets of pillars around its edge. Those pillars once held up two plates, a rectangular strap mounted on short pillars and the circular CP mounted on taller ones. The UCL design treats that frame like a sandwich. Between the big wheel and the strap, they packed 9 tightly stacked layers of gearing into a space of about 0.59 inches. That cramped zone contains the mean sun drive, the lunar node mechanism, and the foundation of the inner planet systems. Between the strap and the CP, they squeezed most of the gearing for the sun and outer planets into a gap of just 9.7 millimeters, about 0.38 inches. The fact that the strap sits at an 11-degree angle relative to the spokes isn't a mistake. It's actually helpful. That angle gives Mercury and Venus just enough room for their epicyclic parts to slide past their neighbors. This is precision engineering at the level of watchmaking, measured in fractions of an inch. Solving ancient mysteries. One of the most satisfying detective moments in the rebuild comes from a small block on spoke D that has a mysterious hole through it. For years, no one could explain its purpose. The 2021 architecture solved it. The small black and white moon sphere on the front needs input from both the sun and the moon to show the correct phase. But if the front face is built as rings, you don't want to duplicate the sun calculation just to drive the moon. The UCL design routes a mean sun feed through a bar attached to that pierced block on spoke D, the shortest bridge across the fixed central gears to reach the lunar phase device. Suddenly, the block isn't a puzzle anymore. It's a bracket with a clear job. The Venus mechanism provides another aha moment. A small fragment called fragment D preserves a disc riveted to a gear with a shaft that changes shape from square to round as it passes through a plate. The gear has 63 teeth, with all but 3 still intact, so the count is secure. In the UCL model, that disc carries the offset pin needed for a pin and slot follower to create Venus's irregular motion. The plate becomes the bearing surface at exactly the right height. The fit is so precise that the authors argue fragment D's parts are the epicyclic core of the Venus train. Whether or not you care about Venus's role on the dial, the point is clear. The surviving bronze fragments sit where the mechanics require them. A similar breakthrough occurs on spoke B, which carries a prominent bearing with no obvious purpose in older reconstructions. In the 2021 design, that bearing supports a compact 4-gear epicyclic set for the lunar nodes, the shifting line that marks where the moon's orbit crosses the sun's path. The bearing aligns perfectly with the tooth sizes in the model, and the space is exactly where the node's train needs to be. The complete mechanism. There is also a simple honesty in the gear count. Behind the rear plate, the surviving systems already account for 35 gears. The 2021 model adds 34 new gears in front to run the cosmos. Together, that makes 69 gears. That number is tight enough to fit within the surviving bronze frame, and specific enough that you can list each gear's tooth count and location. Under the hood, the designers kept each planetary train as lean as the math would allow. The true sun uses just 3 gears. Each superior planet, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, runs on a compact 7-gear epicyclic set. The inner planets, Mercury and Venus, use 5-gear trains with pin and slot followers for their characteristic stop-and-go motion. Where the central world needs an extra feed, but the hub is blocked by fixed gears, the team uses a pierced block and a crossbar to hop over, as with the mean sun bar on spoke D. These are the small, stubborn fixes real mechanisms demand. Testing the reconstruction. What makes this 2021 rebuild credible is that it can be tested. In 2025, another research team tested the reconstruction with computer simulations. They used triangular tooth shapes, the sharp edge style you often see in modern replicas, and then added small manufacturing errors to see what would happen. The results were a warning. The tooth shape by itself wasn't a big problem. But if the spacing between gears was off, by even the small amounts sometimes suggested, the system could jam after long use. That doesn't mean the 2021 model is wrong. It just raises tougher questions. What kind of gear teeth did the Greeks actually cut? How precise were their measurements? How smooth was their bronze? The key point is that this isn't a legend anymore. We're now dealing with practical engineering issues like friction, spacing, and wear, problems you can measure and test. Now that the rebuild works on paper and in simulation, we can finally ask the bigger question. What did the Greeks actually see on the face when this machine came alive? How the Greeks saw the heavens. The very first thing you'd see is the center, a tiny dome representing Earth. Wrapped around it, a pointer shows the moon's position as it moves through the zodiac signs. Beside that pointer sits a marble-sized ball, half painted black and half painted white. Day by day, this little ball turns to show the moon's phases. When it's fully dark, it's a new moon. When it's fully bright, it's a full moon. Every shade in between plays out on that sphere. But the moon is only the beginning. Around it, 6 slim rings are stacked one after the other, each carrying one of the moving bodies the Greeks followed. Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Outside all of them sits the wide zodiac circle, divided into 12 signs, and beyond that, a ring showing the calendar days of the year. Each planet is marked by a bead fixed to its ring. The Sun gets a golden bead with its own pointer, just as an ancient inscription describes, a cosmos arranged in rings with little spheres. On the very edge, a skinny date ring tells you the day. If you want to know today's date, you read that. If you want to see where the planets are in the heavens, you watch the beads. None of this is a guess. Inscriptions discovered in 2016 describe the front in exactly these terms, and the 2021 reconstruction followed those words closely. Together, they confirmed that this front face displayed 9 things at once: the moon, the lunar nodes, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and the calendar date. Reading the moon. Let's start with the moon, because it's the heartbeat of the sky. The moon's pointer shows its position along the zodiac, so you know exactly where it is among the constellations on any given night. The machine even lets you see the moon's age, meaning the number of days since the last new moon. You read it by comparing the moon's pointer to the sun's position on the dial. The difference in days between the two is the moon's age. Cicero once bragged about a bronze machine that made the moon keep as many revolutions behind the sun as the number of days it lags in the sky. That exact trick is built into this device. The moon follows the sun day by day on the face of the mechanism. Following the sun and planets next comes the sun. Its golden bead glides around the zodiac ring as the year turns. When it crosses the first degree of Aries, spring begins. When it hits Cancer, the summer solstice. At Capricorn, the winter solstice. At Libra, the fall equinox. All of this is visible at a glance. The inscriptions even mention a ray for the sun, showing its blinding presence in the sky. The same effect that hides planets when they pass too close to it. The 2021 reconstruction gave the sun exactly that, a golden marker. Stand in front of the mechanism, and you don't need a calendar. The sun's bead alone tells you what season it is. The planets each tell their own stories on their rings, and those stories aren't abstract. They're the same milestones ancient observers cared about. Each ring carries markers for events like conjunctions, when a planet is swallowed by the sun's glare, oppositions, when outer planets stand opposite the sun and rise as the sun sets, greatest elongations, when Mercury or Venus swing farthest away from the sun in the dawn or dusk sky, and the stations, the points where a planet seems to pause and then reverse its path against the stars. The inscription showed that the zodiac scale had little index letters for such events, and the 2021 reconstruction extended that idea to the planetary rings. On Mars's ring, you can see its opposition mark. On Venus's ring, you see the elongation mark. When the bead hits one of these markers, you know the phase of its cycle. The dragon hand and eclipse prediction. Then there's a special hand sweeping the dial that doesn't carry a planet at all. It's a long serpent-like pointer called the dragon hand. It tracks the moon's nodes, the 2 points where the moon's orbit crosses the sun's path. Ancient astronomers often described eclipses as a dragon swallowing the sun. Here, the dragon hand drifts slowly across the zodiac. When it slides beneath the sun's bead and enters one of the triangular windows marked on the dial, the machine is telling you an eclipse season has arrived. Eclipses can only happen when the sun is near the nodes about twice a year, and those seasons are flagged directly on the face. The dragon hand moves slowly, one full circuit in about 18.5 years. That cycle is built into the mechanism. No fragment of a node hand survives, but the way the front and back halves work together makes its presence clear. The calendar and star calendar. The dial also functions as a calendar. Surrounding the moving rings are 2 fixed scales, one showing the zodiac with its 12 constellations and another showing the days of the year. Tiny reference letters are sprinkled along the zodiac circle. Each letter corresponds to a line on rectangular plates mounted above and below the dial. These plates contain what's called a parapegma, an ancient almanac listing seasonal astronomical events like when a star first appears at dawn or when a constellation makes its last appearance at dusk. Farmers, sailors, and travelers depended on these indicators. The 2016 analysis of the texts identified 42 entries distributed throughout the year. Using it is straightforward. You just check where the sun is positioned. If its marker sits over a spot marked with, let's say, the letter K, you look at the parapegma plate for K. That entry tells you which star is expected to appear or vanish from the sky during that time of year. The mechanism and the plates are meant to work together as one system, using the mechanism. So how would someone actually operate this device? Here's a straightforward guide. First, you adjust the date ring so the calendar aligns properly with the zodiac. Then you turn the crank forward until you get to the day you're interested in. Now you simply read what the dial shows. The golden marker shows where the sun is. The moon's sphere displays its current phase. The moon's pointer indicates its position in the zodiac. Each planet's marker shows its location, and the indicators tell you what stage of its cycle it's in. If the dragon pointer sits beneath the sun, within the triangle markers, you're in eclipse season. If the sun's marker is over a spot with a small reference letter, you check the parapegma plate to find out which star will rise or set during that season. In a single look, you've read the entire sky. Design details. The designers used color and materials thoughtfully, so everything stays clear. The sun's marker was golden. just as the inscription describes. In the reconstruction, Venus gets a deep blue marker and Mercury gets a turquoise one, so these two fast-moving inner planets don't get lost in the sun's brightness. The moon's little sphere measures about a quarter-inch across, big enough to see easily. On a display where 9 different things are moving simultaneously, color and size help you track what's what. Spend some time watching each planet, and you start to understand why this transforms how we think about ancient history. Saturn is the slowest, its marker inching along its ring. Jupiter moves somewhat faster, but still shows dramatic reversals. Mars steals the spotlight. When its marker reaches the opposition point, it stands directly opposite the sun, glowing red in the midnight sky, and the dial captures that exact moment. Venus and Mercury always stay close to the sun. Their important moments are their greatest elongations, when they pull farthest from the sun and shine brightest as evening or morning stars. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos appearing on screen for more incredible stories.